Today, I'm actually very excited today to introduce our speaker, Khayree Pender. Khayree comes from Philadelphia. He's a Philadelphia boy, so he's got freedom and America all through his blood. Let me tell you, at a very early age, Khayree really did get a sense of a calling on his life. He ended up going to seminary before he went to college. Who does that? Who does that? But then he went to the University of Central Florida, has a bachelor's degree there in criminal justice. Always had a desire to help people, so he became a youth minister with a special emphasis on the young men in the youth ministry, but also had a passion for law enforcement. So when the opportunity arose, became a corrections officer down here in Orlando, and that, of course, is a ministry to men. He attends the Experience Christian Center, which is less than a mile from the house I grew up in, by the way, less than a mile from the house that I grew up in, where he serves as the executive pastor, which is a leadership and administrative position. He's an elder there, and the executive pastor. He sensed a desire to be more involved in helping men on the front end of their life instead of helping them correct their mistakes. Corrections officer, get it? And so he applied for his lifelong dream to become a law enforcement officer. And so he is one of what by this time next year will be 120 law enforcement officers in a 70,000 person city that we call the University of Central Florida. And so just imagine being a police officer, a full tac gear kind of police officer. This is not a security guard position. This is like a full police officer. I think Khayree told me, he said, we have 100 police, Tavares has 20. So, there you go. So it's like a very big job. And then, oh, by the way, you have a bunch of young people who are transient, and so just think of all the extra effort that's required to be a law enforcement officer out there. But his passion is ministering to these young people, and the stories that he's told me, and perhaps he'll tell us some this morning, are fantastic about helping these young men and women in a redemptive way. And so Khayree is going to be our special guest speaker this morning. So I wonder if you would join me in giving a very warm, rousing welcome to Khayree Pender.
Good morning. Good morning. I don't know what to do after an introduction like that. When he started to speak of some of those things, I was like, wow, that is me. Get to reflect, and I'm thinking, okay, some of those things. But I thank you so much, Mr. Pat. I appreciate you for this opportunity on this morning, and for all the young men that are here this morning to be able to share with me and the topic that's dear to me on this morning as well. As he stated, right now, currently, UCF police officer. And a lot of people really think like, okay, I didn't know they had a whole police station out there. It's a full-fledged police functioning officer, and I try my best not to take anybody to jail. So that's my first thing I try not to do. I try to exhaust every option that I can before I have to take you on a trip down to 33rd, because I think about it. I had several options to work at Claremont and Orange County, Orlando. Those places are great. But when the opportunity come up for me to be a police officer at UCF, I quickly jumped on it. It's not very rare that they open up that position, and to be able to be a part of that, what's going on now in that school, is a great place to be. And the reason why I took the opportunity to be a part of UCF Police Department is because when you think about it, you have 70,000 students that come in. Not all of them are going to stay in Orlando. These are people that are about to be deployed all over the world. So if I can come in contact with some of the students that are at that school and be able to plant a seed in their life before they get deployed all over the world, my work is done. Because I'm making it, for my part, to be an impression in their life, so that when they do leave and they go out, maybe they may have a story of talking about how they came in contact with an officer, or someone who spoke to them, spoke well of them, to help them out in their decisions and even better their lives as well. Not to mention as well, I'm married, have 3 beautiful children, and we're starting on talking about functioning with faith. And one thing I found out is it's always great to have somebody next to you that may have a bigger faith than you. You agree? And in my instance, it's my middle child, my son, Khayree II. If there's anybody that's going to tug on my faith, it's going to be him. Because he gives me all types of assignments and things that I never thought that I probably could do, but his faith is so huge. He came home the other day and said, "Dad, you know what? We went on a field trip and we were downtown." I said, "Great, how was the field trip? Did you like it?" He said, "I loved it." He said, "I saw this huge building down there. And you know what? I want you to pick that building up and bring it home to me because I liked it that much." You talking about faith? You want me to bring the whole building? And sometimes when we deal with faith, we try to counter it. So, I had to tell him, "Well, son, I couldn't take the building home because that'd be stealing." Didn't want to expose my faith, saying, "Okay, I didn't really think that I could do that." So as we're going through this on this morning, we're talking about faith. It's sometimes when you bring that word up, I'm going to be honest with you, you would think that you would be swearing at people. Because that word faith is just a tough one. And when you think about it, who's really going to address the elephant in the room when we talk about faith? Who really wants to attack that 13,000-pound elephant when we have to address it? Faith is something that I've always dealt with because it was given to me, but I didn't know how to function in it. Growing up, I was fortunate enough to have parents that were saved, that took me to church, and they would give me quotes like that. "Hey, Mom, Dad, I want to do this. I'm thinking about trying out for this football team." "Well, son, you got to have faith." "Well, what is that? What do you mean I have to have faith?" When you begin to look at faith, you think about it. There's no instruction manual. There's no directions on how to use it. And I search Publix, Walmart. You can't order it either. You try to find out where is it. So you try to figure out how do you obtain that. What is the faith? So we're functioning through faith. I have a question here. And have you ever been in a situation where resources or connections couldn't help you? Being a man, let's think about it, it's a high demand on us. We are expected to come up with a solution. We are expected to resolve the situation. And sometimes I can tell you, addressing situations that come to me, I address situations not with faith, but sort of with the ego sometimes, or even maybe testosterone. You know what, I'm going to come here and I'm going to take care of this situation. I'm going to figure it out. But when I come to the situation, find out that my own personal being, my own resources, my own stories won't help me out in this situation. When we look at Luke, you think about Luke chapter 5, 17 and 19. It's a great story of faith. The first thing that I want to talk about, but first we'll say this. It says, "But faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen." In Luke chapter 5, verse 17 through 19 is a great story. We talk about faith. There's 3 things that I'll talk about when we deal with faith. And the first thing is finding faith. When we talk about faith, you can't order it. You can't find it. Amazon Prime can't have it to you next day. Those things it's not there. But Luke chapter 5, 17 and 19 is a great story. It deals with the paralyzed man. There's with the paralyzed man who needs to find faith. And if we think about our lives, there's probably been situations in our lives where we really had to deep down pull on faith. Where could we find it at? But here in this story, we have a man who was paralyzed, couldn't walk, couldn't move, but he knew faith was in town. Something that moved me about that story was he had friends with him that carried him to faith. Now I'm trying to figure out how was it. Was it the men that carried him that had faith, or was it him that had faith that asked them, "Hey, can you get me to faith?" It's always great to have somebody next to you that has faith that may be a little bit bigger than yours. Because sometimes when we look at our situations, faith isn't nowhere in the realm of us being a resource of something that we want to use. Because at that point in time, depending on the situation, you may say, "You know what, I need an immediate response. I need I need this resolved immediately." So we have a paralyzed man who has some great friends, sort of like this room, I think if I was in a situation, I would love some of you guys to, help me out in my situations that I may be in. He was a paralyzed man, and he asked them, his friends took him. They knew Jesus was in town, and he had to have faith. I don't know how long he's been paralyzed. They never told us. They never even told us about his condition. But he had some friends around him that carried him to where they found out Jesus would be. Jesus was in the house doing his ministry, as he always is, and they carried him to the place where Jesus was. But they came up with a dilemma. As they took him to where Jesus was, they found out that it was too packed for them to even get in. Couldn't even take him in. Isn't that like faith sometimes? You get geared up, you feel great about yourself. You say, you know what, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. And then when you get to the situation and face it with faith, you sort of lose the hope. You lose the energy that you had. You lose those things that you thought you were going to face it with, being based on the situation. Now, they could have been very much discouraged because they were standing there. They knew where Christ was. They had to find faith. So in a situation, I wanted to find out for yourself, where do you find faith in times of distraught? What do you do? Do you find another solution? Do you push faith to the side? Do you lean on something else? Now, at that point in time, his friends, they could have left him and said, you know what, we brought you where you asked us to. We took you here. But at this point, there's nothing else that we can do for you. We want to get you in to see Jesus, but it's packed. You see it for yourself. It's great to have people next to you that has the same energy, that won't give up, but also want to see these things resolved as well. They said, you know what? And I need to know what type of friends these are. You gear yourself around people like this. They said, you know what? The place is packed. We can't get in there right now. This is what we'll do. We'll go to the roof. It just gave me chills. It gave me chills because they said, you know what? We're going to find a solution. We have faith and believe that, you know what? We're going to find faith today. We're going to get it, the very thing that you've been seeking, the thing that you've wanted. We're going to make sure that we get you to that point. And sometimes my faith, there's no way to even gauge it. You can't see it. It's not like a meter that you know that when you're getting your gas, you can see how much there's not enough. Maybe it took all of them to combine their faith to get to this end solution of what they needed. So the house was packed. We couldn't go through the front door. Not only did they carry them from the journey to where they needed to be, but they took enough strength, enough faith that they had in themselves, that they believed, and they took them to the roof. They began to take him to the roof, peel back the roof, and lower him down in front of Jesus. If that isn't faith, I don't know what to tell you. They lowered him in front of him, and Jesus was so impressed with it. They told him, go ahead. You're forgiven. You're healed. So there's a point in time that even though you may face a situation with faith, you may approach it. You may come up, and it may seem like, you know what, I don't even know if faith is going to work through this. What will you do? How do you find faith? So many times we look for faith as it being a top layer, but there may be some things that we may need to peel back just as that roof to make sure that we find our faith, because it's there. I don't know how big it is. I don't know how small it is, but it's there. They figured out that they needed to pull back some things to make sure that they get to faith. Now, what do you mean I may need to peel back some things through faith? We've all been through some situations in life that probably left a bad memory on us. We probably never got the solution that we wanted. We probably never received those things. And think about it. When you face failure and you come apart or head to head with failure or some things that never worked out the way that you need, that's just another layer on top of your faith. Okay, it didn't work that time. It's another layer on top of your faith. Okay, I don't know if it's going to happen. Doubt, fear, not wanting to mess up again, not wanting to look bad, not wanting to start over again. Those are all layers that are on top of your faith. But then you have to peel back those things to make sure you get to it. One thing I found out about faith is it's so funny that even though we may have all those things, that faith is strong enough to support even those things that we may lean so much on. Faith is strong enough to support our failures, our doubt, our fear, those things that we may very much deal with on a daily basis. It's so faint for us sometimes to even just look at it because I'm hoping and believing in something that's not tangible to me. I'm not sure about you, but I love to have an exchange sometimes, knowing that if I'm giving something, I'll receive something in return. But I'm believing in something that I'll never see. I'm believing in something that I will never touch. It's not like I can present this faith to you, but I have to show up. But faith is strong enough to support those things that may try to layer on top of it. These guys figured out, you know what? We may not be able to get into the door, but there's another way for me to access it. And that's what I want to put out today. We have to make sure that, you know what, the first way we approach it may not be it, but we have to always have an alternate route to access our faith. So here we have that one, which is growing faith as well. It was a great one. But the next one I want to talk about is facing faith. So the first one that we did was finding faith. The paralyzed man, his friends, they had to find faith. You have to find out in yourself, deep down, removing layers away, where is my faith at? Where is it? Is it in that 8-year-old boy that didn't make the basketball team that I lost? Is it in the business contract that didn't go through that I failed? Where is it? Where did I last leave faith? Because at one point we had it and we took it to a situation and it didn't work the way that we thought it was and we left faith there. I can remember myself, the summer of 95, going out for a wide receiver position for Lyman High School. Fresh move down here. I thought I was pretty good. I didn't drop no balls. I thought I was doing all right. Here it is. We had guys that never came, but knew the coach and got the position. I had faith. I mean, I did the practice. I went to the practices. I was 14 years old. I had faith in it. My mom told me, hey, Khayree, I was telling her, listen, I'm hoping I get this position. She said, well, you have to have faith. Thinking, no, I have to have good hands to catch the ball to make sure I get the position. That's what I need to do. We always get those spiritual things thrown on us. Okay, hey, sir, you got to have, no, I need to make sure I'm able to catch the ball if the quarterback throws it. I go through, and I decided, hey, I'm going to take this thing that she told me about that I've never used or felt with and go out here, break the huddle, Lyman High Greyhounds. Hey, you ready? We're on position. We're on line. Yeah, I got Khayree, you ready today, man? This is the day. They're giving out our position. Yeah, man. I got faith. Got what? Yeah, I'm ready. Ended up being, I hope you guys don't talk about me after this, but these were some great guys. A third string wide receiver. I know you're like, Khayree, well, could you catch the ball? And 14 years ago, when I was 14 years old, guess where I left faith at? On that practice field, because it didn't work for me. I left it. That's where my faith was. Until another situation came up, and I had to find out where was faith, and I had to go back to 14-year-old Khayree to pick faith back up. Finding faith. Next thing that we deal with is, after you find faith, here's the crazy thing, you have to face it. Me getting older, there's some things that I know that I have to do just to make sure, just for men's health. If y'all know what I'm talking about, I need to go a little, men's health, older, men's health, that checkup, knock, knock. That's just something I don't want to face. Are you with? I just don't want to face it. I know the time is coming, right? But I have to face it. And you think about certain things that we have to face in life, or things that we did have to face. It leaves an impression on you. Here we have Naaman, 2 Kings chapter 5, 7 through 8, who was a warrior. It don't get no better than this. When you think about being a warrior, you think about your troops going out, conquering, you're taking land, you're successful, you're doing everything that you need to do. When you think about a warrior, you thinking about who wouldn't want to look like a chiseled Greek god? You don't have to say nothing. You just walk up and everything just happens. He had the stature. He had the stats. He had the people with him. But one thing that Naaman had was he had leprosy. He had the numbers. He had the victories. But he had something that he had to face every day within his life. And that was leprosy. So is he really winning victories, or is he really losing and stuff? Because you think about it, I have the great victories, but when you think about leprosy, you can begin to look at it, it's nothing compared to it, not even modern day AIDS. Nobody wants to be around you. It's something that he had to face daily. So we can imagine about his type of faith or what he had or what he had to deal with. I can imagine that he would do anything to get healed. But word had came that, hey, there was a prophet in town, and we're believing that this prophet can heal you of what it is that you have. Now he's thinking, okay, this is a disease that I have right now. There can't be. Nothing can happen with me on this point. But he was willing to try. So you mean to tell me that in the state that you are, people not being around you, dealing with scrutiny, dealing with your own mental things that you're going through, that he was able to find faith somewhere in himself? He was willing to face that situation. He was willing to stand face to face with his leprosy, and then hopefully with faith as well, to say, you know what, I'll be healed. The prophet was in town. Word came. Hey, this is what I need you to do. I need you to dip yourself. You dip yourself. And on that last time, you'll end up being healed. But before he can get to that, he was frustrated. They said he ripped his robe. He ripped his mantle. He ripped it. Because I'm thinking, there's no way in the world that this could happen for me. Certain times we have to face things that you feel as though, you know what, I'm embarrassed by it. Faith won't help me on this. I don't know what I can do to get through this. Naaman was a warrior. And it's funny about being a warrior in stature, but how about in faith and spirit? He found something inside himself to say, you know what, I'll try it. He had to face it. He had to face faith. He had to face faith with the condition that he was dealing with. And there may be some conditions that we may deal with, being men, that, let's just be honest, it's a great name for it. It says the man in the mirror. I remember times when I couldn't even look in the mirror. I didn't want to look in the mirror. Because why? I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to face what I was dealing with. I didn't want to face the things that I was going through. But he said, you know what, I'll face it. But he couldn't do it alone. He had to find faith. Where did he pull it from? Where did he find it? How did he face the faith? There were people around him that encouraged him to get to a place where he needed to be, and ultimately ended up being healed. He faced the situation. Majority of times we may not get results from things that we want or things that we need or that we want to see is because we don't face it. We look at the situation and say, pass on it, it won't happen. But we never faced it with faith. We faced it with our own intuition. We faced it with our own results, our own strengths, but we never took anything with us to face the situation. He was strong enough to say, you know what, I'll face it. I'll face it, I'll go with it, and I'll take something with me, and ultimately became healed. So what are some things that we decided to put on the shelf that we didn't want to look at anymore, that we didn't want to face because we didn't know how to approach it? Now, can I go back to my storing shelf and say, you know what, I'll go back and face this now, not by myself, but I'll face it with faith? I'm pretty sure we all have our own shelf with things that we put up there that we said, you know what, I don't know how I was going to do it. Maybe a contract that I had, maybe something that I wanted to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Yeah, you don't know, but you may have to face that situation with faith. And it's proven fact that it shows when you face it with faith. In Naaman's story, that he became healed. He took that time. So, you find faith, you face faith, and the last one that we'll talk about comes from Genesis chapter 22, verse 2, and then I skip down from verses 10 through 12, and it deals with following faith. Now, it's okay if you find it. That's great. It's even better if you face it. But the last thing is, if you follow through with faith. Follow through with it. Here we have a story, a familiar story that we all know. We have Abraham, and he has his son whom he loved so much. He heard from the Lord, said, you know what? I need you to sacrifice your son, the one whom you love. And I don't know about you guys. I don't want to have conversations with God like that. I don't want you to tell me to sacrifice something that I really love. It's like, okay, faith, believing, follow through. Abraham heard the call, received it, and went on his journey. One thing particular about that journey that I love so much, it was a 3-day journey, they told us. Can you imagine getting a call like that and you had 3 days to think about it? Could you imagine the turmoil that you go through? I would change my mind so many times. I don't even need 3 days. You can give me 10 minutes. I'm like, I don't know if I really want to do that. But we're talking about following through with faith. It tells us here in this story the obedience that he had and his follow through. Sometimes faith can be tricky. And one thing I love about it is it pulls on you in areas that you really don't even know. It makes you stronger in areas that you don't even know. I don't know where my son got him telling me that he wanted me to bring a whole building home. That's faith. For him to even believe in me, to think that I can do it. And I'm not going to lie to you and say that I dropped my wife off downtown at work. And I looked at that building. He made me believe. Let me see what he's talking about. Follow through. Abraham, his son. Sacrifice. That takes faith. Someone that you love. Because when you sacrifice, there's normally something there that we're putting on an altar. At that point in time, his son was going to be held as that sacrifice. It was so funny. His son even, questioned, hey, listen, hey, Dad, I know we're getting our wood and fire and everything together, but where's the sacrifice? Not knowing that it probably was going to be him. His father had to be so obedient and lined up within God, hearing his voice, to follow through with faith. That before he can even raise his hand back to do it, the angel stopped him. And that famous story, there was a ram in the bush. How many times have we cut ourselves short by not approaching it or even following through with it after we made our mind up, saying, I have the faith to do it? How many times have we seen a situation? How many times have our follow-through haven't been great? One thing I guess I've always had a problem with sports. Here's another one. Basketball. Sat down on the bench playing basketball. I like to think that I'm a great shooter. I would always get hollered at by my coach or even pulled out the game. Maybe it was just me. Maybe sports wasn't personal. Maybe I wasn't supposed to play. He would always scream at me after I would shoot, follow through. Because there's a chance that you may miss that shot, but it also gives you an opportunity to get your own rebound. Following through with faith, we don't know the outcome. After all, it's hope. Substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. I don't know. I mean, why not? We trust other things. We believe it. Things that we haven't even met, even by word. Those things. He had to trust them. He had to follow through. And I'm going to tell you that sometimes it gets hard. But faith is a subtle comfort for you to say, you know what? These things could happen. It could change. But first I have to find my faith. Where did you last leave it? What situation left you kind of in a even position to say, you know what? I don't know where it is. But after you find it, you know what? I'm not going to go off the last memory where I left you at. I'm going to face you this time to let you know I'm willing to try it again. And I'm so encouraged to say, you know what, that I'm willing to try it again, that even when we step up to the next situation, I'm able to follow through. Find faith, face it, and follow through. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the challenges that we've even been placed to face. We thank you for what you've done for us and what you're doing for us. We believe in you, God, to know that it's not on our own that we can handle every situation by ourselves. You put things in place for us. And we ask today, God, that wherever it was that we left our faith, help us find it. Some of us may have it. We ask that you build it back up for us. Some of us may not have used it for a while. We ask that you help us clean it up. Lord, we thank you. We know that it may be a subtle thing, something that we don't take for granted, but there's something in us that's saying, you know what, I'll try it again. Lord, we believe in you and we trust in you and we thank you. Amen.